Hey there, you're listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion. Here's your host, RJ Carbone.
And a high drive into left center field. Stanley's going to watch another one fly. Are you kidding me? DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Knicks take a
Take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
At the wall. See ya! See ya! See ya! Mr. Nova.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down and the game is tied.
Rose, you shook up the world again.
I did it again. But God did it, man. I really just had
Gonna have to. Brunson running away. Oh my! He has been the best player to put on that uniform.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
You know, that was perfect. That was perfect. I don't know if there's a more fitting way. I don't know if there was a more fitting way to close the first half of the season than that. Or the first 2/3, right? I hate calling it a half. I mean, everything about that one game right there described, just perfectly encapsulated the Knicks' first 54 games. I mean, that was everything in one. The highs and lows, the WTF moments, Brunson and Towns' dominance, a couple of Brunson and Towns' hiccups, an injury scare thrown in there with Deuce, fantastic offense, abhorrent defense. You had some Thibs stuff, timeouts and challenges, and that was the most 2025 Knicks way to end what overall was a good half. But the Knicks go up by as many as 18 points against the Hawks at Madison Square Garden late in the second quarter last night. 18-point lead. And they're ahead all night. They have a lead the entire game. Even with that hideous defensive second half, they had a lead. And they looked like they were about to sneak away with a wire-to-wire victory when they were up 6 points with 10 seconds left in the game after Hart knocks down those free throws. All you got to do is just be competent. And so they basically pull off what the Knicks pulled off against the Sixers in game 2. Precious Achiuwa leaves Niang open for a three. He knocks it down. It's a 3-point game. Towns and Mikal make that costly mistake on the inbound. Towns turns it over. He fouls Dyson Daniels, who knocks down one out of his 2 free throws to make it a 2-point game. The second miss came on the second free throw, or the miss came on the second free throw, where Towns doesn't box out. He's facing up, I think it was Okongwu. His back is turned to the basket. Not what you want to do, kids. And so Atlanta pokes the ball loose. They grab the offensive rebound, reset. The ball gets to Trae on the perimeter. Josh Hart fouls Trae Young up top. He knocks down both of his foul shots to tie the game. And right there, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a loss. Brunson goes down the other end, misses the potential game winner. The game goes to overtime. The Knicks go down. They go down by as many as 5 points early in overtime. And so at this point in the game, well, after the fourth quarter, I turned the TV off, went downstairs to watch the overtime period. But as soon as they went down 5 points, when what's his name, was it Niang, knocked down that 3 over Towns closing out to him. They go down by 5, and I mute the TV, and I go to my laptop, open it up to do some homework. Because I'm still trying to finish college at 29. And so I'm kind of just like, looking at the screen, watching the game, looking up, watching the game, and I'm just accepting defeat at that point. I'm like, all right, the Knicks ended their first half on what was a miserable choke job. But I keep looking up, and the Knicks get baskets, and I'm looking up, and all of a sudden they pull away. And they pull away with some clutch shot making from the starting unit. And they get some big-time stops. In a game where they didn't play defense, they win the game because they get some crucial stops down the stretch. And they win this game 149-148. A score that, maybe 5 years ago was a score that you see from quadruple overtime, if there is such thing. This was a 53-minute game, and the final score was 149-148 Knicks. So it felt good to win. Let's just say that. It felt good to win. You didn't want to, I envisioned Trae Young and his antics, what he would have done on the Garden floor after that win at center court or whatever he would have done. But thank God they pulled away. Thank God Trae Young missed some shots down the stretch. He now falls to 7-16 lifetime against the Knicks. But hey, at least he had the COVID playoffs. And at least ESPN's always going to have his back for when he does beat the Knicks once every 4 times they meet. Right? That's good. But I can't see a better way to start this episode than by talking about the captain of this team who always seems to come through when it matters. And that's Jalen Brunson. Now, it's I could very easily sit here and give the game ball to Karl Anthony Towns because I guess statistically he had the best game. But my rule has always been, whether it's Yankees baseball or Knicks basketball, my rule has always been, I'm awarding the game ball to the guy who, if the numbers are close, and the numbers between Brunson and Towns were close last night, I'm always going to give it to the guy who's the clutch performer down the stretch. And Jalen Brunson last night, you want to talk about clutch. Yeah, he missed the game winner at the end of the fourth quarter. Yeah, Dyson Daniels got him for a second there with a turnover, but the shot making down the stretch and a nice assist was just critical. A minute 30 left in the fourth quarter. The Knicks are up just 1 point. He knocks down a jab step 3-pointer over Dyson Daniels on the right elbow. Puts them up 4. A minute left in the game in the fourth quarter, and the Knicks are up just 2 at the time. He tries to get the Trae Young switch, doesn't get it, decides to drive on Dyson Daniels for a short pull-up, and traffic knocks it down, puts the Knicks up 4 again. Remember when Dyson Daniels was the Brunson stopper, by the way? Overtime comes, 3.5 left, the Knicks down 3. He knocks down 2 big free throws after getting fouled in transition, pulls the Knicks within 1. And the next time down, off of the Trae Young miss from 3, he finishes a transition layup to give the Knicks their first overtime lead, I believe, 143-142. And then he knocks down, making up for the miss in the fourth quarter there, knocks down the game winner with 11 seconds left or so, with the Knicks down 1. He ISOs on Daniels, crosses him over, pulls, knocks down a 20-footer. Ball game. Also made a big-time pass to Precious Achiuwa from up top. Precious rolls to the rim. Easy open dunk. That's going to get overlooked. Brunson's playmaking was good in this game. But he continues to just put up. He continues to put up in crunch time moments. And so a little update on the crunch time numbers this season from Jalen. Jalen Brunson in the clutch, which is the last 5 minutes of a 5-point game or less, fourth quarter or overtime. Fourth in total points. So the three guys ahead of him in total points have played a lot more minutes. But the most impressive part of his clutch time shot making has been the combination of volume and efficiency. He is fourth in shots attempted in the clutch and shooting 53% while being fourth in shot attempts. Only 2 guys in the top 20 shot attempts have a better field goal percentage, and that's Nikola Jokic, a 7-foot big, one of the most efficient players ever, and Malik Monk, who's only 0.6% more efficient on less volume. You want to talk about impressive? That's impressive for Jalen. To do that as a 6-foot guard, to be that productive and that efficient at a volume that high, super impressive. So that's why, while I could have went to Cat to give him the game ball for dropping 40 again for his second straight night and knocking down those 30 friggin' footers he was knocking down and getting to the cup and rebounding and passing, I always lean towards the guy who takes me home. And Jalen Brunson, just as he's done his entire Knicks tenure, took us home. 36 points on the night, 8 assists, 13 for 21 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, which means he was, 10 for 21 minus 7, 10 for 14 from 2. 7 for 10 on his foul shots. Played 43 minutes, and he was fantastic. So he gets his 20th game ball of the season, which is second on the Knicks behind Deuce McBride, who has 21. Jalen Brunson, though, continues to be the best Knick all year. Oh, captain, my captain. Props to him. Campaign. Bing Bong campaign. I thought campaign was good last night, man. The second unit was productive as a whole. But campaign, 10 points, 4 assists, shot 4 for 5 from the foul line. That was important. He gave the Knicks some very big minutes at the top of that fourth quarter, along with the second unit for that early 9-0 run. You know, Precious knocks down a basket early on, and then Campaign goes out there, and he's getting to the basket, drawing contact, and was knocking him down. Really big boost there with Brunson off the floor at the top of the fourth quarter there to keep the Knicks ahead. Without that stretch, the Knicks probably lose this game. Obviously. So I thought Campaign deserved it. But you did get another productive performance from Landry Shamet, who was 2 for 3. Wasn't horrendous defensively. Nice. But Campaign, another solid one, and he now has, 13 game balls on the year. I've given him 13 game balls on the year from that second unit, averaging 7 points, 3 assists, doing it on pretty efficient numbers. So good for Campaign. Yeah, the guy's doing this on a veteran minimum contract, so he's been very valuable for them. I do want to talk about some frustrating parts of this game. So we'll talk a little bit more about this game when we return from break. But since it is the final game before the All-Star break, I do just want to do a little bit of a review on the first half of the season as well. So we have those things to talk about when we get back here from our break on episode 803 of the podcast. Stay with us. We'll be right back. BD4 is available on social media for those who want to follow. You can find BD4 on Instagram at BD4Pod. You can find us on X at BD4Pod. And you can find us on Facebook by simply searching BD4. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, this podcast is also available in video format on YouTube. So be sure to go over to the YouTube channel, BD4, subscribe, like the videos, comment and tell me how much I suck or maybe how much you like the video. We'd very much appreciate it. Don't have time to sit down and watch a video? You can listen to BD4 on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also watch the video format on Spotify too. If you feel like supporting the podcast, you can Venmo at Robert-Carbone-JR-28. We really appreciate your support. Do you enjoy Yankees baseball but are tired of hearing me yap? I have a suggestion for you. Go check out Yankee Crazy Podcast. Greg Gill is a Yankees podcaster on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and he's now selling merch. Go to yankeecrazy.myshopify.com. All right, welcome back to the show. Episode 803 of the podcast. The Knicks avoid a major choke job at Madison Square Garden last night. 149-148 in overtime against the Hawks. Yeah, that was tough. Giving up 148 points on your home floor is never something to be proud of, obviously. And it continues to be Trae Young, who's listen, as much as every Knicks fan in the world hates him, we hate him so much in New York, New Jersey that, you're going to Yankees games and you're hearing F. Trae Young chants. He's a good player, man. He is such a tough guard. He's a cover that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. The guy can play, and he went out there last night and he dropped 39 points and facilitated 19 assists. 39 and 19, and it looked easy for him. It looked very easy for him. The pick and roll problems continue with this Knicks defense. It's tough to sit here and watch every single night and remain confident in this team's chances. These pick and roll breakdowns that they consistently have, whether it's, recovering after not being able to get over the top, whether it's getting beat on the roll or on the drive from drop, whether it's just basic miscommunication on switches, on unders, going over, doubles, hedges, blitzes. It's just been a mess all year. And Mikal Bridges last night, it's funny, I saw a popular Knicks content creator tweet out Trae Young with Mikal on him last night, 3 for 11, as if that means Mikal defended well. And you got to be careful with those NBA tracking data. They're not always, it's a little iffy. Mikal Bridges last night was a brutal watch at the point of attack. Multiple times in this game was he breaking down. It started really in the second quarter when Trae Young started to knock him down. And then from there, it was brutal. Brutal is the only word I can find. Top of the second quarter, he's caught behind on an empty side pick and roll, Trae Young gets an easy floater on it. Late in the third quarter, he gets caught behind on a slip in high pick and roll. Trae gets an easy floater out of it. You go to the middle of the fourth quarter. He gets caught chasing on a down screen. Late recovering, Trae Young knocks down a wing three-pointer. Also in the middle of the period, there was a possession up top where Hart goes under. Bridges gives Trae way too much room, and he knocks down a 30-footer. I don't know what Bridges was doing there, but he was literally standing there watching him. Doesn't go up. Hart was clearly going under. Bridges is just standing next to the screener, and he gives up the open look. Late in the fourth quarter, he gets caught behind off of a slip again. Trae Young gets a finish by Precious. And then late in overtime, there was a breakdown where he's caught behind out of a slob set. There was no screen, but he plays it too aggressively. And then Trae beats him right, gets to his floater. Time and time and time again, Mikhail getting caught behind the hips and getting punished for it. And he's been better defensively than he was earlier in the year. It's still a bit up and down. But I just wish the dude will put on a little more weight because it seems like he's not physical enough sometimes. Those screens can really bump him off his spots. But man. And then Towns. It's the other part of that equation. He's a tough watch in drop. Early in the first quarter, it started right away. And it's probably his worst defensive stretch of the season right now. So thank God for the break. But early in the first quarter, you get a Trae Young, Okongwu pick and roll out of pistol. Brunson and Towns are put into action. Towns plays it too high up, concedes the easy roll for Okongwu. I have one on my notes here. Early third quarter, you get another Trae Okongwu pick and roll. Towns, again, too high up. Another roll for Okongwu. Early fourth quarter, a Trae Barlow pick and roll. Towns is way too lax in coverage. He's in an upright stance again. Easy roll for Barlow. Late in the fourth quarter, Brunson gets caught behind. He's chasing. Towns is in drop. Gives up a floater to Trae. Middle of the fourth quarter, you get another Trae Okongwu pick and roll in transition this time. Towns, again, he's too high. He's upright. He's unbalanced in his stance. And Okongwu dunks it off of another open roll. It's the fundamentals in Karl Anthony Towns when he's defending in drop coverage. Consistently burning him. And there were some other breakdowns from other guys, Hart, Precious, Brunson. They all had moments. And I get it. It was the second of a back-to-back, right? It was not only the second of a back-to-back, but it was the second of a back-to-back after a long, taxing 2/3 of the season so far. Final game before break. Everybody wants to get there. And Atlanta's a tough cover. They have the personnel to really put up points, right? They've got the perfect rim rollers for Trae Young in Okongwu and Capella when he's healthy. They've got the perfect point guard for traditional pick and roll, right, with Trae. Trae's excellent touch in the mid-range area when he comes off makes him a threat because you don't know if he's going to throw a floater up or if that floater is going to become a lob. He's so good at that in-between game, and that's what makes him a threat when he comes off pick and roll. If you send help to him, you're risking being put into rotation in 4-on-3. But if you play 1-on-1, he's going to beat you. And Atlanta was just, they were hunting the right switch. They were seeking out Brunson and Towns, and they did a really nice job putting up points on the Knicks. So they do got to give some credit to them. But again, when this has been a season-long problem, at some point you just wonder, is it ever going to be, championship worthy? You know my answer to that. Yeah, I mean, I guess my final thoughts on this game. I thought offensively, obviously you score 150, you do your thing. The lineups were fine. Considering Deuce McBride left the game, considering OG is already out, tough to find the greatest spacing. And to be fair, that starting lineup with Precious and Hart together was a positive net in 24 minutes last night. It's still not going to be anything I'm a fan of. I still think that lineup, no matter what the metrics say overall in a small sample, I don't trust it to be sustainable. I think a lot of that's been against bad teams, and I think it just overall lowers your offensive ceiling. And just watching it, it's not pretty. The sets are awful. I mean, there was a Towns Precious pick and roll last night. Turnover central. I think the best 4-man lineups of the night were the Brunson, Shamet, Mikhail, Cat lineups. You had one where Precious was out there with them. That was at the top of the second and top of the fourth quarter. They were a +7 together. And then you had that same lineup, but you remove Precious and add in Hart, where he was out there with them in the second and fourth quarter, more towards the middle of the periods. And that also worked. It was a +6. So with one non-spacer next to 4 spacers, it works really well. At the end of the day, again, as much as and many Knicks fans are bitching and complaining about these lineups without OG, the spacing, they scored 150 and they continue to score every night. I liked how they were looking for mismatches all night. They hunted Trae Young pretty well. They were looking for mismatches out of horns late in the game. They ran some horn sets to get Brunson some baskets. I do still think Mikhail needs more reps. He shot 63% in this game, but just took 8 shots in 43 minutes. Part of that is him needing to be a lot more aggressive. Part of that is Thibs. Maybe draw up more sets for this guys. Pick and roll, horns, floppy, get him under the basket coming off. I like that lately they're running him in some of those slob actions, those sideline out of bounds plays. ATOs, he got an early slob set where he knocked down a mid-range off of it today or last night. But for the most part, Brunson and Towns take blame. Brunson's got to find him more. But considering that for a good portion of this game, Trae Young was hiding on Mikal Bridges, and the Knicks didn't exploit that on the post, it's kind of frustrating because Mikal is a bucket on the mid post. And he's got a shot that gets a high release point, so you can post Trae with them. And also frustrating in this game was the fact that despite playing 5 periods, they only attempted 26 3-pointers. They're going to need more volume. It's not like the Hawks are some tremendous switching defense that limits their threes. They do some good switching. They're credible defense, but I don't know, man. Towns got them up. Brunson got them up. Again, OG's out. Deuce was out. But it's tough seeing this team shoot as well as they do. I mean, Towns scored 44 points last night, and the number of 30-footers he was knocking down. But you want to see that more, because you feel like there's a lot more untapped potential there. Take advantage of your spacing. But that's it on the game. I think the game was a roller coaster, but it was fun to win and wrap up the first, again, half of the season on a high note. It was all things considered, it was a good first half. All things considered, I would probably give them, if I was grading them with a letter grade, a B+. What was their final record of the first half here? Where did they go? Let's check. They won 36-18. That's exactly winning precisely 2/3 of their games. The 3 seed, sitting there all year. They were good. Brunson and Towns have become one of the best pick and roll duos in basketball. Mikal, I would like for him to be a little bit better. He's had some ups and downs, but he's been fine. Josh Hart's having a career season. Would I like OG Anunoby to be a little bit more impactful on the defensive end at times? Yeah. But he's been good this year. He's super important to them. You're seeing that with the defense slipping. The second unit has obviously that's been a short bench. It's lacking talent. The defense overall has been pretty poor, especially in that starting lineup. But again, you're the 3 seed. You're on pace for 55 wins. I think Tom Thibodeau's done a nice job. If I were to grade Thibs' first half, I would give him a B+. I think that in terms of his creativity and his rotations, that could be better. It's been fine, but it could be better. I think a lot of us want more spacing emphasized as opposed to emphasizing size. The minutes patterns, it's a lot of minutes. Some guys are out there for extended stretches like Mikal, but again, you got a short second unit, and you're small, so it's hard to give some guys certain minutes when you want to keep some size out there. And again, the bench unit, people want to play the bench more. They're just not that good to where I think they can warrant getting a ton of minutes if you're trying to win. Campaign is a veteran on a minimum salary. Landry Shamet, not really an NBA player at this point. Precious Achiuwa has a lot of flaws positionally. Do you want to make a case that some of these rookies, whether it's Kolek or whether it's Kolek, Huckporty, or Pacome Dadier, fair. Maybe some of them should get more minutes, but I get why he's been hesitant to play some of these guys. You see it in the mistakes they make. The defense, the coverages that we're seeing, I think Thibs is trying his best with the personnel that he's got. Would I like more switching in the later half of this season when we return from break? Yeah. I would love to see what they look like with a little more switching. The offense is one of the top offenses in the NBA. Again, do I wish they would find some more countermeasures to switch everything defenses and some other stuff? Yeah. There are things that I think they absolutely need to tweak. And we're going to talk about all of that right now. But overall, I think Thibs has done a good job. The Knicks have done a good job. Considering where we are right now on February 13th, 2025, we're winning regular season games, and that's all you can ask. Now, you want to talk postseason? That's a different story, and it's very fair to get heavily critical when it comes to Thibs in the playoffs. I'm waiting for that to come. Let's get there first. But as I sit here today, I've been content with the season they've had. Doesn't mean I'm 100% optimistic they're going to win a title, because I've said multiple times on the show, I've given my opinion on that. But it's I want to talk the specifics of some of the first half stuff, defensively, offensively, when we return from our final break here. So let's do that real quick. Let's head to a quick break. We'll be back. Do you enjoy Yankees baseball but are tired of hearing me yap? I have a suggestion for you. Go check out Yankee Crazy Podcast. Greg Gill is a Yankees podcaster on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and he's now selling merch. Go to yankeecrazy.myshopify.com. Okay. Welcome back to the show. Yeah, listen, this defense up to this point in the season has not been good. They are now 18th in defensive rating, so they're slipping again. I believe they've gotten as high as 12, 13 or 12, but now they're down to 18 again. And listen, Thibs has tried mixing up coverages all year. And I think he's done it pretty well with his base being drop. I just don't think he's got the personnel to find a consistent theme that gets this defense into being a contending defense, a top 10 defense. I don't know if that's ever going to happen this year. They're probably going to sit 15-ish all year, give or take. I just don't think they're that good. And I think it starts with the biggest question mark, right? The question has always been with Karl Anthony Towns, can you contend for finals with Cat as your 5? Minnesota tried it for a little bit, and then they had to trade for Rudy Gobert to play 5 because it just wouldn't work. They had to put Towns at the 4 to try and make a run. And the Knicks are experiencing those same difficulties right now with Towns at center. It's just the defense is not there. The fundamentals, the technique is poor. Stance is poor. The positioning, the angles that he takes, some of these hands-down contests are maddening to watch. The immobility. Towns at the 5 in drop coverage is brutal. It's hideous, and it's not all his fault because the wings have had trouble staying attached and recovering at the point of attack. Mikal has been their primary point of attack defender all year. And so when the guard comes off with Mikal behind the hips, Cat's left non-committal and he's forced to play 2, roll and ball. And the Knicks can't stay home. Now they're forced to rotate help off the corners and the wings, and they're beat on the kick out off the help in rotation. So let's try to bring him closer to the level. Let's level him and have him in aggressive coverage. Well, that's also been brutal because he doesn't always hedge hard enough. And again, the stance is poor. The positioning's poor. And so when you see Cat come to the level, often he's going to get beat on the edge and the guard's going to turn the corner on him getting downhill. It doesn't always work. I mean, look at that Boston game. The amount of open lanes Tatum had when Towns was up in coverage. So, what does that leave you with? Should the Knicks switch more? Should they switch? Well, it's also a tough decision because Towns is not mobile enough to deal with quick, shifty guards without help. And then, you talk about a switching defense. Well, the Knicks have 2 pick-and-roll targets on the floor for 40-plus minutes a night in Towns and Brunson, which is why I'm not going crazy for Mitchell Robinson's return, because while I think he could help putting Mitch at the 5 next to Cat in those lineups, you're still going to have Cat and Brunson on the floor for the majority of the game. So I do want to see more switching. I just don't know if that's the solution. But it would be nice to see more switching because that's I like what I see at times when Brunson is in one-on-one without help. Like Boston the other night, the lone positive from that game was Brunson switches. He was holding his own when he was on Tatum on the perimeter. He was holding his own when he was switched on to Brown on the post. And the Knicks were staying home, and nothing else has been working. Drop, switch, drop, hedge, leveling, blitzing, nothing has been working, with switching being the one coverage the Knicks do the very least. And so I think with more reps in a switch everything and just reputations, it'll lead to less miscommunication. Because right now there's a lot of miscommunication on what should be auto switches. Like how many times do we see where there are 2 elite wing defenders in the action and the Knicks either don't switch it or they late switch it, and it just leads to a breakdown, right? It's because the Knicks don't have the reps. They don't have a rule, right? They don't have a consistent plan of when to switch, where to help from, etc. And I think that's led to a lot of those breakdowns. So the defense is something that I think is going to take a year. I don't think it's going to get figured out this season. We'll see when they're at full strength. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's been rough to watch. And then offensively, obviously, it's been elite by the numbers. They're second in offensive rating. They get a lot of paint buckets, a lot of short mid-range baskets. They're an efficient three-point shooting team, but they're not really a high-volume three-point shooting team, which bothers me. And part of that is the nature of the players they have. A lot of them are just comfortable going to where they've lived their entire careers. Another part of that is when they face certain switching defenses, right? And so that's the one thing that we've been pressing all year. It's the biggest concern of mine, above all, is when the Knicks go up against switching defenses that will cross-match, right? Putting the wing or the small on Cat and the big to Josh Hart, throws the Knicks off their game 1,000%, right? And it's because of so many different things that the defense can do off of that, right? Towns isn't comfortable posting smalls. He's not comfortable shooting over smalls. He prefers to drive the closeout. If Towns has the wing on him or a small on him, let's say Towns has the wing and he comes in to screen the 1-5 pick and roll for Brunson, that's not a favorable ISO for Brunson. That's not a switch he wants. Right? You want to use Precious or Hart as the screener when you're facing those types of schemes where they cross match. That's the favorable matchup. Josh Hart's big is going to bring help to many spots on the floor this way. Right? When the big's on Hart, he'll send gap help to shut off Brunson's driving lanes. They'll send backside help to double the post on Towns. They'll send paint help to the basket. And so all of that depends on lineup combinations and positioning of the players on the floor. Right? Like we've talked about recently, if Precious is on the floor and Towns is out there with him, you want to use Precious as the traditional 5. You want to put him in the dunk spot, and you don't want to have him spacing on the corner. Because if you've got Precious on the corner, the defense can commit to the help onto and off of Brunson or Cat actions. Because Precious is not a threat to shoot. So why would I guard him? I can go anywhere I want. But if Precious is in the dunk spot, you can't commit to the help because he actually is a threat to dunk when he's right near the basket. And it's kind of the same thing. If Hart's on the floor, you want to use him as a cutter. You don't want to space him out on the 3-point line because you can use that defender as a helper. You want to use Hart as a cutter because it demands attention of the helper because he's an excellent finisher. And then if you have these lineups where both Hart and Precious share the floor, you don't want to use both of them as weak side spacers on the corner. It's useless and it's very harmful to your offensive upside because neither can shoot, so the defense will help wherever they want from the weak side. And neither of them, Hart or Precious, if they're standing on the weak side corner, are close to the basket, so they're not going to be a threat if you pass to them. And so all of that is something the Knicks are still trying to figure out, and they just haven't yet. Which is why when they go up against OKC, which is why when they go up against the Boston Celtics, that those two teams have handled them with ease this season. So it's not because of some basic, the Knicks can't beat elite teams take. Yes, but it's a little bit more than that. You know, it's more detailed. We dive into the details here on BD4, all right? And again, there are definitely ways to countermeasure, like positioning. But then there are also ways to counter the counter if you're the defense, you know? So it's hard to find solutions, and the Knicks are still trying to tinker with that. Maybe you use Josh Hart more to throw the entry pass down to Towns on the post. But then you do something like that, and now maybe the defense will pre-switch it or scram switch it. Maybe you want to use Towns on the elbow as opposed to up top. You want to use him on the elbow in face-up and not really on the post. You want to use him in face-up because he can make better reads on the backside help. He's got better vision that way. He can find cutters easier, which he's very good at hitting cutters. It's tough when you don't have ideal, true 5-out spacing with Hart, Precious, and no OG at the moment. And then you got Mitch coming back, which, again, while the upside is that maybe he alleviates your pick and roll problems, the downside with adding Mitch to the equation is he's going to take, when he's on the floor with Towns, he's going to take the big off of Towns, and that's going to decimate their spacing in those lineups, right? It's tough to counter those switches and those cross matches with one non-spacer on the floor. But if Hart or Precious, or God forbid, Hart, Precious, and Mitch are all on the floor, it's over. It's like those Huck lineups. So that's something they really have to figure out. Another small but real issue with this offense that I think is going to have to be figured out if they want to get to a championship level. The Knicks need to do a better job countering from their primary action. I believe that they are way too dead set on getting the ball to whoever the set is designed for, and that's kind of harmful at times. They need to be more flexible and more creative and more reactive. Otherwise, the defense is going to bring pain help to the ball side, because if they know who the play is for and they know who the play is not designed for, you could be OG spacing weak side or Precious. It doesn't matter, because they're not going to bother looking at you. If you have friggin', Steph Curry spacing on the weak side of the floor, but that the Knicks designed this action for another player, who cares about Steph? Because the Knicks are going to get that guy their shot attempt. And that's the problem they have right now. I feel like it could be just a very basic offense at times. And if they tweak something like this and they're a little more reactive, they make better reads on the defense, it'll lead to a lot more efficient looks out of your sets. But overall, I think Knicks fans should be happy with the way this season's gone. Maybe happy is a strong word, but content. And I would say if you're very miserable and you're one of those downers and you're a doomer, temper your expectations. I don't think that when Leon Rose and Brock Aller and Worldwide West and the remainder of the front office, I don't think when those guys built this team, they were doing it with the mindset of this is our year. Now, this is when the window starts. I think they completely, the McHale trade, the Cat trade in one off season, it's a big change to your team. The roster, it was a roster turnover, let's be honest. It takes a while to build chemistry with a brand new team. It's going to take a minute. I don't think they have the depth yet to do it because of the trades they made. McHale, you gave up all those picks, but Cat, you gave up Randall, you gave up Dante. When you got OG, you gave up quickly. Your bench is thin now. So it's going to take a year, I think. It's going to take a year to deepen your rotation. I think the window starts next year. I think that's really where it's like boom or bust. Obviously, you want to win this year. The goal is to win a championship. But the window is more open than people think. With the contracts that Josh Hart is on, Jalen Brunson, Karl Towns, Anunoby, it's like a 3-year, 4-year window tops starting next year. So I'm trying to temper my expectations. If you expect this team to win a championship this year, I think you're a little fooled by it. But hey, crazier things have happened than a number 3 seed winning an NBA Finals, right? So, only 4 Knicks teams in the history of their franchise have gotten off to equal or better starts than this current one. The 93 team actually got to the conference finals, and the 94 team got to the finals. So maybe they can make a further run than I anticipate or than I expect. But up next for this Knicks team is All-Star break. So this was the final game before the break. We get about a week off. I don't really care about the All-Star festivities. I'll watch the dunk contest. I'll watch the 3-point contest. As far as the All-Star game, I don't even know what they do anymore. That shit became trash after the East versus West, which I hope people now appreciate the East versus West. People were bitching about that too when that was a thing, but I think we all miss it now because whatever gimmicks they got going on, it's garbage. But I will watch the 3 and dunk. I usually, and maybe the skills contest, but it's more background noise for me. I don't really focus too much on it, but I'm just glad this Knicks team is getting much needed rest. And so that's it. The first half of the season is complete, or the first 2/3 of the year is complete. And let's get to our trivia question to wrap this episode up. Shall we? Okay, give me a second. All right, so here in episode 803, our trivia question. The Knicks are on pace for 55 wins. When was the last time they won as many? Kind of just gave you a hint a few minutes ago. The Knicks are on pace for 55 wins. When was the last time they won as many? All right, the Knicks are on pace for 55 wins. When was the last time they won as many? And that is all we got. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Episode 803 is in the books. The Knicks beat the Hawks 149-108. 149-148 in overtime. And Knicks fans, I will maybe see you in the upcoming week. If I can get a Knicks episode out talking about some things, I will. But I'm definitely going to have some Yankees content out soon. We just had an interview or conversation with Greg Gill from Yankee Crazy Podcast. He joined the show. We talked Yankees. We're having another guest. I think he's going to be joining us this weekend. So look forward to that. But that's it for this episode. Episode 803 is in the books. I appreciate you all. And I'll see you very soon. Go Knicks. Well, if you made it this far, that means you listened to or watched the entire episode. Thank you. Just remember to follow, subscribe, download, rate and review, and all that fun stuff to help out the podcast. And I will see you in the next episode of BD4.